let's talk about feminism. Alrighty, so what exactly is feminism? Feminism is the advocacy of women's rights on the basis of the equality of the sexes according to Webster's dictionary. Now, I'm sure many of you already knew this, and the vast majority of you hopefully agree with this statement. However, I'm sure at least half of you don't consider yourselves a feminist. Why is that though? To assess this, we are going to be looking at the 4 waves of feminism and how they are really starting to impact the way that today's generation looks at feminism. The first wave lasted from about the 1830s to the early 1900s. First wave feminism really focused more on the political side of feminism, which was not really anything on the lines of, sexuality and beauty and gender and the more personal aspects of feminism. And then we moved on to the second wave, which was from the 1960s to the 1980s. This was a little bit after World War II, and this is when feminists started to really focus less on political rights and more about the workplace, sexuality, reproductive rights, and so on. They saw that not only were their political lives being dictated by men, but also their personal lives. And this is when feminism really started to take charge. As you know, during World War II, a lot of the guys were gone fighting, so the girls had to take over their jobs. And after the men came back, they realized, we can do just as much as you can do, we just proved that. Why should we go back and be housewives and cook and clean and make babies, and that's our jobs and that's our livelihoods, when we know that we can do more? Now, during this time, feminism was still pretty inclusive to just middle-class white women. So a lot of people didn't take the feminism movement very seriously, because after World War II, there was a lot of movements going on. African Americans were fighting for their rights, the LGBTQ plus community was fighting for rights, the anti-Vietnam movement was going on, and the list goes on. There were so many movements happening that middle-class white women, they had a nice house, usually had a family, had maids probably. And then we get to the third wave. This lasted from about the 1990s to the 2000s. Third wave feminists typically wanted to fight what the media was putting out. They wanted to question the ideas of what femininity and sexuality and gender, all of this stuff that society deemed as a certain way, they wanted it to be changed. And this is when feminism really started to break apart into the different branches that we see today. There are eco-cultural feminists, the radicals, the liberal or reforms, the electoral, academic, eco-feminists. The list goes on for a while. And today we're going to be discussing radical feminism, which you are going to be most associated with because that's what you see in today's media. A lot of people think that radical feminists were man-hating, which is not the case. They were patriarchy-hating. They think that patriarchy is giving men the upper hand, but they're not saying that's the man's fault, usually. They were basically saying that for a girl to be feminine was bad because they said society is the one that shaped you to be feminine. And like I said, fighting against patriarchy, society's bad, don't be feminine, which is not exactly the right mindset. And people really don't see classical feminism anymore because of our generation, which would be the fourth wave of feminism. The fourth wave of feminism is the wave we are in right now. It's really influenced by social media, and it's really kind of a feminist-hating society because a lot of people agree that women and men should be equal. However, they don't consider themselves feminists. And this is because of the way that radical feminists and liberal feminists and these other branches are really starting to take over and be louder than classical feminists about what they believe in, which is woman power means don't shave and don't wear makeup and don't wear dresses and hate men and all of this stuff. But really, that's starting to branch away from feminism, which is why it's breaking apart, and that's why people really don't consider themselves feminists. Overall, feminism is saying that women should have equal pay to men, that women shouldn't have to be worried about being raped when walking alone at night, that women shouldn't be paying luxury taxes on feminine products. I'm not just some privileged white girl complaining about everything wrong with guys. I am a woman who thinks that in the eyes of society, I should get the same amount of respect that a guy gets. And that is feminism. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk. let's talk about them. Oh God, okay, Welcome to my TED Talk.